Hello and welcome to the Fragrant Divide. Now that we're nearing the end of autumn and transitioning to winter here in the US, I wanted to share some of my amber perfumes. There's just something about the warmth and spiciness, the sweetness and the texture of amber perfumes that make them perfect for cooler weather. Is it the coziness factor? It's verging on cliche, really, sort of like making a video about amber perfumes in autumn is kind of cliche. And speaking of cliches, let's start this list off with Grand Soir from Maison Francis Kurkdjian. This is probably one of the most popular ambers and perfumes in recent years, especially here on YouTube. While I'm not the biggest fan of this one, I do completely understand its commercial success. It managed to hit that sweet spot in the middle of a classic traditional smelling amber, an outright likable gourmand, and good performance. That said, I just don't like that musky vanilla cinnamon dry down. As compared to something like L'Artisan Parfumés L'Eau d'Ambre Extrême, created by Jean-Claude Ellena. It's a very classic smelling amber, quite powdery and relies heavily on patchouli, but it also goes through an almost gourmand phase using dry, powdery spices. I've actually slept on this for a long time, and the only reason I got this was because it was a Jean-Claude Ellena creation. The first time I smelled it, it just seemed so old and makeupy, and then it just ended up being shelved and unused. Now I'm really enjoying it. It could be just me, but the newer version, though still good, seems to have doubled down on patchouli to the point that the dry down feels like a gray amber, while this old version feels like what one would think based on the color of the liquid alone. Again, could be just me. Next is Elixir de Merveille from Hermes, yet another Jean-Claude Ellena creation. I featured this in my last video as one of my most worn last fall and winter season, but guess what? It continued to be a most worn throughout spring and summer as well. It's candied orange and earthy amber. That's the TLDR of it. Speaking of the Merveille, we might as well talk about L'Ambra de Merveille from the same house. The difference is that L'Ambra is definitely sweet, but less candied. It's darker, and the amber is more of a pronounced, smoother balsam that feels kind of sticky as opposed to Elixir's slightly drier, rock-like texture. It's famously described as having that particular bug spray smell. Not sure if that spray still exists today, but if you've smelt it, don't lie. You know that it was intoxicating. You know it was poison, but intoxicating nonetheless. I wear this to bed sometimes, and my shirt smells so yummy when I wake up. This next one is Myrrh and Tonka from Jo Malone, and it's quite interesting because it leverages tonka, which is neither a resin nor balsam, but can have very balsamic characteristics that lend so well to ambers. Sometimes tonka is so annoyingly sweet, but here it's more on the powdery, smooth, cola-flavored side, and the result is a semi-sweet, earthy, but smooth amber. I'm definitely looking to get a bigger bottle of this in the future. The next few ambers are more on the light yellow spectrum of ambers, as opposed to the darker, richer ambers I've shown so far. Coincidentally, all of them are male marketed fragrances. The original 8 and Bob is a spicy, woody amber. There is something in the composition that gives it this aromatic, bitter bite that is almost like when you bite into black peppercorn. That is then supported by a warm, almost suede-like textured amber. I can actually rely on the packaging to sort of convey what I'm describing. The black lid is the woody black peppercorn, and the rest is the yellow amber. Moving on to Allure Homme from Chanel. Now this one has many notes, but we're going to oversimplify it. Citrus and fruits at the top, that as far as I can tell is dominated by mandarin, and a warm aromatic woody base. The citrus choice and overall warmth are what gives this its yellow amber feel, and the muskiness even lends an almost smoky air to it. Another one from Hermes, we've got Rocabar. While this is not technically considered a fougere, it has very similar elements, especially in the overall citrus aromatic parts of the composition. Again, it has a woody amber base, primarily resins like fir balsam and benzoin, and then vanilla starts coming out more clearly in the dry down. One of the interesting things about Rocabar is that it has this incredible but very short-lived phase where the woods and the resins feel like super fine sparkling golden powder. It's so good, but yeah, it changes so quickly, unfortunately. Another group of ambers that are quite popular are spirits and liquor themed ambers. What I like about this style is that, if done right, it creates this crumbly, earthy, rock like texture that I really enjoy. First in this group is Spirit Cask from one of my favorite brands, Joram Studio, and was created by Ewan McCall. There are two main themes here. First is a yeasty, oaky, airy blonde woods effect, and the other is a woody, leathery amber, resulting from the combination of multiple spirits, resins, and a good amount of bourbon vanilla absolute. The idea behind this is that you're supposed to be smelling the empty barrel with the last traces of the liquor. While it's not the most liquor forward, you definitely get a feel of it the more it dries down. Next is Dangerous Complicity from Etal Libre d'Orange. It has a very similar style to Spirit Cask, wherein there's a semi-sweet jasmine and musky air hovering around a delicious note of rum. There's a phase in the opening that feels like a solid chunk of dried rum that levels out quickly. I checked all three of the major perfume directory websites, and they all listed Lorinox, a synthetic amber green molecule present in the dry down. Maybe that's what's contributing to the ambery feel, but I really couldn't tell. While the rum note lasts a good while, the overall perfume goes quiet and close to the skin really quickly, which is unfortunate. Whiskey from Commodity Fragrances is another one from my collection that I've slept on for so long, but recently started enjoying. While the liquor accord does come off like a sweet, boozy, woody amber, what's really interesting to me is that the overall smell is actually quite green, earthy, and kind of balmy. I didn't know that whiskey could smell green at all. This travel size that I have is from before the company shut down, and after it was revived, I got a discovery set. It's possible that this new sample has gone bad, but all the similar elements still seem to still be there, and it still attempts to smell like liquor. But comparing the two, this feels airier and more sheer, like a perfume, but it seems to be skipping certain notes. It's not bad, but the old version smells more like an actual dried liquor, which I prefer. Seriously though, the archive collection is the one to check out from Commodity. The other ones, I think they're kind of awful. Most of the ambers I've shared so far give an impression of either a reddish amber or a yellowish amber. Now we're switching to gray ambers. From what I can tell, it's mostly achieved by using more labdanum and a lot less of other resins and balsams. A good example of this is Marquis de Sade Attaque le Soleil from État Libre d'Orange. The only listed note for this is cistus, which is a type of rock rose where labdanum comes from. This smells like black pepper and sweet dried fruits, of something that smells overly ripe, and has a little bit of funky muskiness. It eventually gets more ambery as it dries down, but not as resinous as the next few examples. The possible reason for this, according to the internet, is that they may have used cistus essential oil as opposed to actual labdanum. They differ in extraction methods, and the latter is supposed to be much more resinous than the cistus essential oil. Next is Ambergris from Paris Monte Carlo. The brand says that they wanted to highlight the aphrodisiac properties of natural ambergris. The result is that of an unusual, soapy, bitter scent, accompanied by some humidity, dry amber, and just a slight hint of sweetness. I really do find this to be quite odd, and for some reason, I think of bleach. Oddness aside, it's quite intoxicating, and I wear it to bed all the time. If you are familiar with Prada Amber for men, they have a very similar style, but I can't take the lotiony shaving cream thing going on with Prada Amber. Another one with amber in the name is Amber and Roses from Mancera. My goodness, the reviews for this are wild and all over the place. But what I get is a dewy fruity rose, musk, and a big dose of labdanum in maybe all of its glory. The amber in here has the funkiness of labdanum, with a very pronounced warm, dry rock texture all the way to the dry down. As far as I know though, unfortunately, this has been discontinued. Lastly, the darkest one in this list is Patchouli Nuzebe by Paris Monte Carlo. This is pretty simple. It's chocolatey patchouli from the island of Nuzebe, Madagascar, Paris Monte Carlo's signature thick, fluffy musk, supported by amber and a hint of vanilla. The dry down is very ambery in texture, and it will remind you of what some people have been calling as the generic base. You know, that patchouli amber tonka base that's exactly the same in a million other fragrances. That one. except instead of tonka, there's vanilla. While the texture does become more pronounced, it doesn't really overpower the patchouli and the musk. So, despite the generic base, this is a pretty good option if you're a fan of those notes. I would say that the more popular examples of gray amber and labdanum are, of course, Shalimar by Guerlain, that goes into the leathery gray amber direction, Labdanum 18 by Le Labo, which is labdanum and ambroxan, and Le Lion from Chanel with labdanum and smoke. I do have a final category that I'm calling amber adjacents. These ones are not technically ambers, I think, but they end up giving off amber vibes anyway. Starting with Egypt from 8 and Bob, just like the original, it gives off a warm yellow amber feel, mirroring the desert sands of the place itself. The rest of the notes have spices that lend a gourmand smell, slightly sweet, as if there's some filling for a pastry. Just like the previous one pertaining to a place, Moab from the Old Fleur also depicts the warmth of a heated red rock. It seems to rely on a very spicy note, possibly the long pepper note, for the warmth and texture combined with some balsams. Look at the color of that juice. The overall result is a very spicy vanilla amber adjacent. It really does give me the impression of being in the Moab Desert in Utah in the middle of summer, especially since I actually live in the desert with red rocks myself. And finally, since we started with a cliche, we'll end with a cliche. The very popular tobacco vanille from Tom Ford is one that I wear a lot in the cooler weather, especially around Christmas. This one relies on gourmand notes and spices that, when combined with tobacco and vanilla, results in a very textured, fizzy, cola-esque amber adjacent. For me, what makes tobacco vanille better than a lot of the other extra similar scents out there is that it never becomes too sweet. Many other tobacco and vanilla perfumes become too sweet when they dry down, especially when the tobacco dissipates, but this remains enjoyable past that. So that's my ambers and adjacents list. What's your favorite cold weather amber? Are there fairly new ambers that are worth checking out? I am genuinely asking because I've really been quite out of the loop. I've been kind of avoiding perfume content altogether and have not purchased anything for the last 2 years except maybe for a 3-piece sample set. So please let me know down in the comments. I hope that was helpful or entertaining in some way, and thank you for watching.